For those of you, if you have any questions or concerns, you can go ahead and put them in the chat. I will help with any technical difficulties, and then the Plaid team can help with any questions about the project or anything like as we go through there. And with that, we will go ahead and turn our time over to the Plaid's team. Since we're getting started late, and we'll keep my piece of it short. So go ahead, Plaid, take it away.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and say welcome, everyone. My name is Andy Jones, and I am the content editor here for Plaid's online education program, Let's Paint. It's my pleasure to have you all joining us this evening, and we do apologize for our little bit of a late start. We're still going to give you the full hour lesson, and I think you all will enjoy painting our little jug of hydrangeas. And so we will be having Emily Schmidt moderate for us. So if there's an urgent question or something like that, Emily will relay that to me, and I will do my best to answer it. I can save you a little bit of time. You can not bother typing for me to slow down, because we're going to move at a reasonable pace, but we've got to get through the painting. So telling me to slow down isn't going to help you any. And then, as always, I want you to remember that you get what you get and you don't pitch a fit. So I think we're going to have fun tonight painting this little arrangement of hydrangeas. So if we can go ahead and shift to our overhead camera, that would be great. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to bring this original painting up for a little bit of a close-up so that you all can see what we're going to be working on tonight. And I'm going to call out paint names, and I want to let you know that if you have exactly the paint name that I've used, that's fantastic. And if you don't have the exact paint that I'm using, that's going to be okay too. So if I ask for a light blue, any light blue that you have is going to work fine. If I say orange, just about any orange that you have is going to be fine. So don't get hung up that you might not have exactly the same paint that I do. Just anything close is going to be great. All right, so what I have is my little stretched canvas here, and I've made some loops of tape, and I have secured it to a piece of cardboard. And now I've taped my canvas to the cardboard, so I have something to hold on to while I'm painting, so that I don't necessarily paint my hands trying to hold that. All right, so I'm going to put out some white paint on my palette. And I'm also going to put out some ultramarine blue. And then if you have any light, bright blue, that will be great. I just grabbed some Calypso Sky. If you have that, that's great. If you have Cayman blue or any light, kind of light, what I would call a tropical blue, that would be fine. And I'm going to grab a 3/4 inch flat brush, I think. And I'm just going to grab a 1-inch brush because that's what's here. And we are going to get started painting the background of our canvas. So I'm not using any water. I rarely use water when I paint. It thins down your paint. It makes your paint more transparent and runny, and doesn't really help me do anything that I want to do. All right, so I'm mixing a little ultramarine blue in with some of my kind of tropical blue, and I'm just creating a light blue here on my palette. Now on my canvas, I have lightly sketched the design that was provided for you. And if you don't have that, you could sketch any little jug shape that you want and your hydrangeas in there. And I'm simply going to basically fill in the background. And I am bringing this blue color into the hydrangeas that are on my design. So filling in the entire background, going up right up next to the little jug, going underneath the jug, and then going over here on the right-hand side of this canvas. This is all very, very light blue. Just brush mix as you go. All right, so I've got this very light blue all over the background of my canvas, and I'm going to show it to you real quick. So that's what it looks like, just painted in light blue. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit more of my ultramarine blue and my tropical blue. And I'm going to start down here in the lower right hand side of the canvas. I'm going to come right underneath my little jug, and I'm going to move some of that up. All right, so I've darkened the lower right corner of the canvas. I think you all can see that. And I can take some of this darker color too, and I can just put a little bit right up there in the upper right corner. All right, so that's what my background looks like. Very, very simple, not a whole lot of fussing going on there. So I'm going to give you just a moment to get your painting to look like that. And while you are getting your painting to look like that, I'm going to put out a little lime green and a little coffee bean or dark brown or burnt umber or whatever dark brown color you happen to have. And some pure orange.
What are you doing? Here with my client, Lily Knowles. Oh my. I think we may have a problem here. This is my client. Claire Waters is Mother Evelyn Waters.
Oh my God, Mrs. Waters, I'm so sorry.
No, that's enough. That's enough. Miss Waters, I have to tell you something. Mr. Palmer here and I are not just friends, we're colleagues. We work at the same firm.
I don't understand.
So I have put out some pure orange on my palette, along with some lime green and a dark brown color. Whatever you have is going to be fine. And I think we're just about ready to begin to paint the copper jug.
Just tell them that you're sorry for wasting your time, but you're a student colleague out there first. Case closed.
Okay, so we are going to start painting our little copper jug, and I'm just using some pure orange, and I'm going to pick up the tiniest amount of ultramarine blue, and that is going to tone down my orange a little bit, make it a little bit dull. And we're just going to brush this on. Coming right down the left side of my copper jug. And then we're going to fill in the entire copper jug with this little bit of a rusty orange color.
You want the room?
I put this on mute.
Okay, so I have that undercoated, and you can see that it's fairly transparent. So I'm going to take my heat gun, and I'm just going to dry that really, really quick. And now we're going to give that a quick second coat. And this will cover much better. And I just turn this canvas around so that it's very easy and comfortable for me to paint. All right, while we have this color on our brush, we're going to go ahead and start painting in the illusion of a reflection. So to do that, I'm going to start right inside the little copper pitcher, and I'm going to pull some of that color down and go straight across. And notice where this goes out, where it meets the base, the little reflection turns back in.
Plaid team, it looks like we've lost Andy's audio. We're not hearing him. I don't know if you guys can unmute yourselves.
No, we can't hear him.
Yeah.
Nope, can't hear him.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
not hearing you. There we go.
No.
Okay.
No, we cannot hear him.
No, we still can't hear.
No.
Yeah, we can't hear.
Oh.
It-
Yeah, I can't hear him.
We're working on it, guys. We know. Hold tight.
Okay.
Okay. So it's
Try it now.
okay. We're going to try it now. How's that, everybody?
Yeah, we can hear
Good.
you now.
Okay, very good. Sorry about that. Tonight is just bedeviled with little problems, and so we're just do the best that we can to correct them as they come. All right, so I'm assuming that you all can still hear me. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So now I have my liner brush, and I'm going to take some of my pure orange and ultramarine blue, and we're going to just paint the handle of our jug with this kind of rusty color. So thank you, Emily, for correcting that little sound problem. Usually I talk enough that people are pretty tired of hearing me. It's not like people are like, we can't hear you enough. All right, so I've added a little extra ultramarine blue to this to darken this color a little bit more. And I'm just going to brush some dark accent along kind of the outside edge of the handle. And it kind of looks like that. It's very, very simple, not complex painting here. And I'm going to quickly dry the jug again. And we're going back to our number 8 flat brush, and I'm going to pick up a little bit more orange and ultramarine blue, making this even darker. And I'm going to brush a little bit more shading on down at the bottom of my jug and then along the left-hand side. All right, I think you all can see just how much darker that little jug suddenly got. Okay, so you can go ahead and stroke that on. And then I'm going to clean my brush out just by wiping it on my shop towel. I give you all just a second to catch up with me because I know we had our audio problems. So I'll bring this up so you all can see it a little bit closer. Okay, we're going to put a highlight on our copper jug. So I'm going to take some orange and some titanium white, and I'm just going to brush mix this together, making kind of a lighter orange color. I don't want this highlight to be white. I just want it to be kind of like a dreamsicle, that kind of color. And now I'm going to bring this up so that you all can see very clearly. I'm going to use the corner of my brush. I'm going to set the brush down and I'm just going to pull up. I'm going to turn that right side up so you can see that bit of a highlight that I've just pulled on there. And I can do it again if I need to. We can mess around with the painting as much as we want to. It's better for the painting if we don't mess around with it too much. So just another little sweep up. And you can see we've got a nice highlight on our jug there. And I'm going to put a little bit more of a highlight up at the top. Just pull a couple of little bits across. And now I've got a more interesting highlight on there. So I'll give you a second or two to do that. And I'm cleaning my brush. And when I talk about cleaning the brush, I lay the brush on my shop towel and fold the shop towel over and then pull the brush out. And that cleans the excess paint off the brush. It grooms the brush back to a nice flat shape, and it keeps my hands clean and free of paint. All very important things. All right, so I'm going to put out some red on my palette. And you're not going to need but just a little tiny freckle of the red. So I'm going to take the red and a little bit of white. And this is going to make a nice pink color. And we're doing this just to create some variety on our copper jug. And I'm going to take some of this. And this is not such a light pink, it's more of a medium pink. And I'm going to, right at the bottom of the jug, I'm going to just put a little stroke of pink on right there at the very base of the jug. All right, so let's get that. You can see that little bit of pink that's on there, and I'm going to adjust it a bit because when I looked at it on the monitor, it's a little confusing. So there, I think that's a little bit neater, and you can see that pretty well. All right, we are going to do a quick little bit of palette knife work, and don't freak out about this because it's pretty easy. I'm going to take some of that dark color that I made for the copper jug. That is pure orange plus ultramarine blue, and I'm going to redden that up by adding a little bit of red to that mixture. So it's orange, red, and ultramarine blue. And I'm going to put a little bit on the back side of my palette knife. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to slide this underneath the jug, kind of across the reflection. And then I'm going to just slide it up a little bit. And there you can see some of this little speckledy, rusty red-brown color. And I'm also going to extend this a little bit over here on the right-hand side of the canvas. Just like that. So the colors were pure orange, ultramarine blue, and red. All right, so we're going to let this dry, or I'm not going to let it dry. I'm going to dry it really quick with the heat gun. And I'm doing that because I don't want my next color to muddy up in the darker color. So I've got some pure orange, a little bit of white, not much white, making a nice, pretty orange color here. And I'm picking some up on the back side of my palette knife, and just about midway through the reflection and over to the, let me check that, to the left side of my canvas, I'm just going to put a little dab of that on there. Okay, just like that. That's just creating some interest there on the table. And then for fun, I'm going to take some of this violet pansy, which is a dark, well, it's not a dark purple, but it's a pretty intense, vivid purple color. So I'm going to take some of that, and I'm going to mix a little bit with my dark brown and a little of the ultramarine blue, making a super, super dark color. So actually, this is going to be mostly blue or purple and some of that dark brown. And then what we're going to do is we are going to take the edge of our number 8 flat brush, and I'm going to tap some of this really dark blue purple color right underneath my jug. That's going to create a little bit of a dark shadow right on the table. All right, so I'm going to bring this up very close for you to see. So you can see that really dark line underneath the pink. There's that really dark blue, purple, and brown color. I'll give you a minute to catch up there. And I think we're doing really good for the time we got started. Y'all are keeping up pretty well. All right, so I put some white in my brush, my number 8 flat brush, and I'm wiping it out now. And so what I'm going to do is take a little bit of the white, a little bit of my ultramarine blue, and then a little bit of my tropical blue color. Almost the color that we started out with in our background. All right, I'm not going to need much paint on my brush, so I'm going to take a little excess off on my shop towel. And I'm going to pull a little bit of a blue accent, like from underneath where I'm going to eventually put a leaf right there. So right from underneath the leaf, I'm setting my brush down. Let me see if I can bring this up so you can see what I'm doing. I'm setting my brush down right on the corner, and then using the flat edge of the brush from the tip of the brush up toward the ferrule, I'm going to just sweep down. And I had such a little bit of paint on my brush, it didn't even show up. So I'm picking up a little bit more. And there you can see I've added that nice kind of icy blue accent on my pot. And I just want mine to show up a little bit more. So I'm going to pick up a tiny bit more paint. And again, use the corner of the brush and just sweep straight down, just increasing that blue accent a little bit more. And then I'm going to take some of that same color, and I'm just going to tap a little bit on the handle of the jug. Right, so let me bring that up. You can see where I've tapped that little bit of blue on the handle. That's just using the chisel edge of the brush. Okay, I'll give you all a second to catch up to this point. We're being extra generous with our time tonight because we got a little bit of a late start. But I think y'all are gonna keep up with this pretty well because we're not doing anything that's very difficult. We've done the hardest part of this entire painting. We've painted a whole copper jug. So until I see what all you've painted, I'm gonna just assume that you all have done a great job on that. And remember, I love seeing what you all paint and how you interpret my lessons. So when you post this, you can, on social media, you can hashtags Michaels, you can hashtag Plaid Crafts, you can also hashtag Let's Paint Challenge. And that, Emily's adding some of these hashtags to the chat. Thank you. In this way, we can see if you post these in the Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group, I'll really get to see what you do, which I absolutely adore, seeing what all you paint. All right, it's time to turn our attention to our flowers that are in our jug. So I'm going to take some lime green, a little bit of ultramarine blue, and a little bit of our dark brown color, whether that's coffee bean or burnt umber or whatever dark brown you have, that's going to be okay with me. All right, so I've just brush mixed a nice, relatively kind of dark, dark blue. I'm going to add a little bit of my kind of tropical blue to that. And then I want you to watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the corner of my brush and I'm just going to scrub. And you can see that I just painted a leaf with the corner of that brush. And I'm going to add another leaf over here. And I'm not sure that my leaves that I'm painting tonight are exactly where they were in my original painting. And it doesn't really make that much difference to me because every time you paint a painting, it ought to be a little bit different. All right, so now you can see 3 leaves that I've just quickly kind of sketched and painted in using mainly the corner of my brush. And I'm going to take a little bit more of my ultramarine blue and a little bit more of this brown and try to hold this up so you could see. I'm just going to pat some of this darker color on where the leaf is going to disappear under the floral arrangement. I'm not trying to paint a fancy leaf or do some incredibly
Can you please slow down?
Pardon me? Oh, I thought someone asked a question. I'm not trying to do some sort of magic shading or anything really fancy here. I just want my leaf to have some light area and some dark area on it. So that's what we've got right now. So I'll give you a second to catch up with that. It's amazing that when someone looks at a floral painting, anytime they see some green in it, you're instantly going to assume that those are leaves. So you don't have to necessarily dot every I and cross every T for the viewer. Leave a little something. Oh, please slow down. I'm sorry, I can't slow down. We've got to get through the lesson tonight, but it's being recorded, so you can go back and watch this again at another time when you have a little bit more time, and you can pause the video and start it up again and paint at your own pace. So all is not lost. All right, so I'm taking some of my lime green and a little bit of white and a little bit of that kind of tropical blue color. And I don't need much paint on my brush. And I'm going to simply just kind of stroke across the leaf. And I'm adding a little bit of a highlight to my leaves. All right, so I'll hold that up there so you can see. I did not try to blend that in. I just laid a little bit of color on there. So my leaves now had a green base. We added some darkness to them, and now we've added a little bit of a highlight. Very simple, not fussy, not taking excess time with that. And what I will say is, if you are trying to paint along with me, my hat, I'm tipping my hat to you. I don't think I could paint along with me either. I would need to be watching the rerun and stopping and starting the video. Okay, we have a bunch of hydrangeas to paint. Now, let me show you what we have here. All right, we've got darker hydrangeas over here on the right. We've got kind of two clumps of white hydrangeas, and then there's some little yellowy green flowers. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set my number 8 flat aside, and I'm going to pick up a number 12 flat brush, just a little something bigger. And I'm going to pick up some ultramarine blue and some of my, what I'm just going to call my tropical blue. And I'm going to start creating some of my hydrangea flowers. Now, I am not a big fan of trying to paint every hydrangea petal. That's not doing anything to make me happy or excited. But I do like the shape of my flowers. So these are going to start absolutely off the top right corner, and I'm going to tap and dab until I get a nice, interesting shape. And I'm going to show you that up close. Just picking up those two colors again and dabbing them on basically with the corner of my brush. All right, so when you look at this painting, you can see that I do not have something that's like a round kind of cotton candy or powder puff look. It's got some interest to the shape of the flower. The outside shape is always terribly important. All right, so I'm scrubbing a little bit of that paint in, and then I'm just going to move kind of in a diagonal from the upper right down to the lower left. So using the same color, I'm going to start over here, not quite off the edge of the canvas, but just creating an interesting shape. And this need not be solid. It is better off if it is not solid. There will be some of you that can't stand not painting every individual little petal on your hydrangeas, and I can't stop you from doing that. But I think the more of a suggestion of a flower that you give, the better your painting will end up looking. So more of an interpretation and less of a literal flower painting. All right, so you can see that the outside, the only thing I'm concerned about right now is how this outside shape looks. So that's what we're concerned with right now. So I'm going to let you dab some of this on, and I'll give you a minute to do that. And again, the flowers start from the upper right, kind of diagonal over to the left-hand side of our canvas. And we are concerned about the outside shape of our hydrangea flowers. Take a minute and look at your screen and really notice the outside shape of this flower cluster. All right, I'll give you a minute or two so that you all can get that done. I'm afraid if I give you too long, you all will start messing around in the paint. When you've done this, you can stop painting. You don't have to keep painting just because there's some time allotted for you. So I'm going to give you just a little bit more time. I'll hold this up so that you all can get a better look at it. The color on the inside of the handle was the same color as the background. I just painted right over the handle, right up next to the pot. I'm just giving everybody a little minute to catch up. Don't get used to this time to catch up because we don't do it very often. Okay, time to catch up is over. We are moving on to start creating the lighter areas of our hydrangea flowers. So I'm back to my number 8 flat brush, which I think is going to be a great size to work on these little flowers. And I'm going to dirty my brush in the same color that we were working with, which is our kind of our tropical blue and our ultramarine blue. I'm going to wipe that out of my brush, and then I'm going to pick up some titanium white and work that into my brush because I don't want a solid white here. I want whatever colors were in my brush. There was some green in there from painting the leaves, but I'm picking up a little bit of blue because I do want this to be a little bit dirtier.
Hey, Andy, we do have a question from Claudia. She
Okay.
was wondering how you connected the canvas to your background.
Oh, some loops of masking tape, and then I just stuck it on there. So when I'm done, I'll pull it right off of this cardboard. This cardboard's just to help hold the canvas so that I don't get paint all over me. All right, so now I've got this kind of really, really pale blue color on my brush, and I don't have a ton of paint, but I'm going to imagine that this area right here is where my brightest hydrangeas are. Okay, so I'm going to take the corner of my brush and I'm going to dab. Okay, so watch, I'm going to take the corner of the brush and dab. I'm going to turn the brush and use the other corner. And you can see that I am making little dabs. I'm not making little flowers. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Some little dabs of white. And take that same color and I'm going to move over here and I'm going to try to leave a little bit of this darker blue showing there, but we're dabbing on some of this lighter color. Okay, can you see how I left that little bit of dark area between these two white clusters? I'm sure you all are saying, yes, I see exactly what he's talking about, and I'm doing exactly the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to give you another 30 seconds or so to add this light blue color on top of your darker blue cluster of hydrangeas. This is one of those things that you probably, as I always like to tell people, you need to care a lot less about how this looks. So many people are really wrapped up in exactly how this looks at this moment. And now's not the time to be worrying about that. We're just developing some light areas. Think of it like that. You're not really painting flowers, we're just painting in some light areas. Okay, so I'm gonna wipe my brush off, just pinch it in between the shop towel. And then I'm gonna pick up some white by itself and load the brush with that. And again, I don't need much paint on the brush, but we will come back to where we started, and I'm going to dab on some more lighter, whiter dabs. And I wish I could come up with exactly the term for what this is, but they are actually lighter, whiter dabs. And I'm using the corner of my brush, and I just keep flipping my brush back and forth. And I'm trying to hold this up closer so that you all can better see what I'm doing. And I'm also holding the brush as far back on the handle as I can. Okay, so that's what I've got right now. And they're not individual flowers, they're just dabs of white. So I'm going to take some more white, and I'm going to do the same thing, but less of it out here on the left side of this little flower formation. And do you see how quick that happened? We are just done with that. All right, so we've got this area over here that we're not finished with. So in this area, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a lighter purple color. I'm going to take some white and a little bit of violet pansy. Excuse me. All right, so we're just mixing violet pansy and white on our brush, making a light purpley color. And I don't need too much paint on my brush, but I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add some purpley little dabs to this. My first color seemed too light to me, so I added some more violet pansy. All right, so I've put some of this purpley color in there because hydrangeas often come in purples and pinks and blues. All right, so that's enough purple in there. And because hydrangeas often have odd colors in them, we're going to add a little bit of an odd color to this. So I'm going to take some titanium white, some lime green, and a little bit of my kind of tropical blue color. And my personal favorite hydrangea colors are the ones that have that deep, rich purple color. And then there's all this kind of lime green in it. I love those color combinations. All right, so this is kind of greeny blue. And I'm going to wipe my brush off because I don't want too much paint. And we are going to add in some of that greeny blue color. Now I'm going to pick up some of that kind of tropical blue color and add some dabs of that on top of the green. Okay, so that's kind of how we've got that. I am using the corner of the brush most of the time, dabbing on the corner and then on the opposite corner, kind of coming back and moving it around so that it's not hitting at the same angle every time. Right, what makes this little tiny painting so interesting are all of the different colors that we have in there. So I'm going to take this kind of light bluey green color that I was just working with and add some more titanium white to my brush, making this very, very pale. And we're going to come right back in here and add a little bit of this on there, a few dabs of this lighter, more pale yellow-green color. All right, so see how we've lightened that? I'm going to take some of this same very light yellowy green color, and I'm going to put a few little accents kind of right over in this area. And we don't need a ton of them, but I've just put a few little dabs right in here. That's going to kind of lighten that part of the painting up just a little bit. And we're kind of repeating that color, making it more interesting to look at our painting. We're coming down to the last of this. So I'm going to give you a second or two to catch up with that. Trying not to rush you all like crazy, even though I know it seems like we're painting super fast. So I got a little tickle in my throat tonight. I apologize for that. Still going to give you another about 30 seconds to catch up with that. This is a really sweet little painting, and you can buy the little wooden easels that you can set your canvas on if you want to maybe give the canvas as a gift for someone. They don't necessarily have to find a frame for it and hang it on the wall. They can set it on an easel. And it makes a great little gift. I imagine that it's probably all of you that have kids in school have probably already done your teacher thank you gifts and things like that, but this would be a great little present for any teacher. Unless, of course, you're giving your teacher bottles of wine, then they might appreciate that a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to wipe my brush off, and we're going to pick up some titanium white. And we are just going to come back and add a little bit of white here and there. So wherever I think this little painting needs to be brightened up a little bit more, I'll come back with some straight white on my brush and just add some little dabby doos of white. And yes, dabby do is exactly the technical term for what we're adding. And a few little dabby doos of white here and there. Always mindful of what the edge of the flower cluster looks like. We don't want powder puffs or round puffy edges. We want interesting shapes to our flower forms. Okay, so I think that's all I'm going to do there. I think that looks pretty interesting to me because I can see several different values of the blue and white. All right, now we've got one more thing that we have to add. And this is one of those things that you often see in a painting and you don't necessarily pay a lot of attention to it. And that's just a little eye catch or a little bit of what we might call a rogue color. So I'm going to use a little bit of pure orange. I'm picking it up just on the corner of my brush, and I don't need much, but I'm going to add a couple of dabs of this orange into the flowers. All right, so you could see I added 3 dabs of orange. Excuse me. So add a little bit here, here, and here. And that really does just kind of make your eye look at this section of the painting. So it holds your viewer's attention inside the main subject of the painting. So those little eye catches are really, really interesting to have sometimes. And I'll show you another little way that you could do a similar effect, and that's to take some of this kind of tropical blue that we've always mixed it in with something else, but I'm just going to add some of that by itself. And you added yet another interesting color to your painting. Okay, I think that's enough playing around in this, because otherwise, if you keep doing it, you'll end up with a billion little dots of color, and that's not really what you want. All right, so that is the hydrangeas in a little copper jug. So Emily, have we got any last minute burning questions? I don't think we do. Okay, so I'll hold this up for you all to have one more. No, you don't need a table line, because we've just kind of created the illusion of a table with our reflection and then our kind of dark color that's dragged along there. All right, let me show you the original one, and we'll prop that up there so you all can take a look. And this is our hydrangeas in a copper jug. So thank you all for joining us. Remember to use the hashtags that you've seen in the chat column and post these to your social media. If you're a member of the Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group, we'd love to see what you post there. And you can use the hashtag Let's Paint Challenge, all one word, no apostrophe. And don't forget, you can hashtag Plaid Crafts and make it with Michael's and Michael's Crafts. All right, so this will be posted to the Michael's website and the Michael's YouTube challenge within the next 24 to 48 hours. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. We thank you for painting with us as always. Until next time, keep painting, everybody.